A hand shot out of the darkness and grabbed her arm. Dr. Elena Mercer didn't have time to scream before she was yanked into a narrow alley, her back slamming against cold brick. A Navy SEAL pressed his finger to his lips. "Silence," he whispered. His German shepherd blocked the entrance like a living wall. 3 men in tactical gear ran past inches away, hunting for her. In her pocket was a USB drive containing the names of 47,000 dead children killed by fake vaccines her own company manufactured. The man who wanted her dead was her mentor, her almost father. Tonight, he'd ordered her execution. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. If this story grips your heart, please subscribe and stay until the very end. Now let's begin. The fingers around Elena's arm were iron. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think beyond the primal terror flooding her nervous system. The man holding her was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that scanned the alley entrance like a predator calculating distances. His dog hadn't moved. The German shepherd stood absolutely still, muscles coiled, amber eyes fixed on the street where her hunters had just passed. "Don't speak," the man breathed against her ear. "Don't move. They're circling back." Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She could taste blood where she'd bitten her tongue during the grab. Her legs were shaking so violently she thought they might buckle. Footsteps. Getting closer. The dog's ears rotated forward. A low vibration built in its chest so deep Elena felt it more than heard it. "Marco, check the alley." The voice was close. 10 feet, maybe less. The SEAL shifted his weight, positioning himself between Elena and the entrance. His hand moved to his waist, but she saw his jaw tighten. He was unarmed. A flashlight beam swept across the alley mouth. Elena stopped breathing. The beam passed over the dumpsters, over the scattered trash, over the loading dock door. It didn't reach the deep shadow where they stood, pressed against the wall. "Clear. She must have gone toward the waterfront." "Copy. Team 2 redirect to Harbor Drive." The footsteps faded. The radio chatter grew distant. The night settled back into its normal rhythm of distant traffic and the hum of air conditioning units. The SEAL didn't relax. He held position for a full 60 seconds, counting under his breath before finally releasing Elena's arm. "They're gone," he said, his voice still barely above a whisper. "For now." Elena's knees gave out. She slid down the brick wall until she was crouching, her arms wrapped around herself, violent tremors racking her body. "I can't," she gasped. "I can't breathe. I can't. You're hyperventilating." The man crouched in front of her, his presence somehow both intimidating and calming. "Look at me. Hey. Eyes here." She forced herself to focus on his face. Strong jaw, dark stubble, a scar running through his left eyebrow. But his eyes weren't cold. They were steady, anchoring. "Breathe with me," he said. "In through your nose. Hold. Out through your mouth. Again." Elena followed his rhythm. The panic didn't disappear, but it receded enough for coherent thought to return. The dog approached, pressing its massive head against her shoulder. The weight was grounding warm. "That's Shadow," the man said. "He likes you. He's usually a better judge of character than I am." "Who are you?" Elena's voice came out broken raw. "Jake Reyes, Commander, United States Navy. Currently on leave." He paused. "And you're the woman they just put on every news channel as a wanted terrorist." Elena flinched. "You saw." "Hard to miss. Your face is everywhere." Jake studied her with unsettling intensity. "The broadcast says you stole proprietary vaccine formulas worth billions, says you're mentally unstable, delusional." "That's a lie." "I figured." He gestured at the alley entrance. Corporations don't send private military contractors after delusional employees. Those men were professionals. Kill team. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Kill team. Victor had actually sent a kill team. You know what they are, she said. How? Because I used to be one. Jake stood offering his hand. Can you walk? Elena took his hand. His grip was strong, pulling her upright without apparent effort. I don't know. I don't know where to go. I don't know who to trust. You don't know me either. You just saved my life. Don't mistake that for safety. I pulled you out of immediate danger. That's not the same thing. Jake checked the street, his body angled to minimize his profile. Those men will regroup. They'll expand the search grid. We have maybe 15 minutes before they start canvassing this area properly. I have nowhere to go. Jake looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, a decision being made behind those steady eyes. I have a place, he said. It's not comfortable, but it's defensible. You can catch your breath, figure out your next move. Why would you help me? Because you're running scared and they're hunting you like an animal. Because I spent 12 years watching powerful people destroy innocent lives while hiding behind flags and contracts. His jaw tightened. And because I'm tired of walking away. Shadow whined softly, nudging Jake's hand. The dog votes yes, Jake said. That settles it. Stay close, move fast, don't look back. The truck was a battered Ford F-150 Rust, eating at the wheel wells parked in a lot 3 blocks away. Jake helped Elena into the passenger seat, then lifted Shadow into the covered bed. Keep your head down, he said, climbing behind the wheel. Every traffic camera in the city is probably flagged with your face by now. Elena slumped low in the seat, her mind racing. 12 hours ago, she'd been in her lab reviewing data. 12 hours ago, her biggest worry had been the quarterly presentation. 12 hours ago, Victor Ashworth had been her mentor, her protector, the man who'd believed in her when no one else did. You said you saw the broadcast, Elena said, as Jake navigated through side streets avoiding main roads. What did he say, Victor? What did he tell them about me? Jake's hands tightened on the steering wheel. That you're his protege. That he loves you like a daughter. That you've been suffering from paranoid delusions for months and he's been trying to get you help. He glanced at her. He cried. On camera. Very convincing. Elena felt sick. He's rewriting everything, making me the villain so that when I'm found dead, no one asks questions. Who is he, really? Victor Ashworth, CEO of Vanguard Pharmaceuticals, billionaire, philanthropist, the man who's supposed to be saving children's lives all over the world. Her voice cracked. He's murdering them instead. Jake said nothing. He pulled into an industrial area near the harbor, navigating between warehouses and shipping containers until they reached a corrugated metal building that looked abandoned. He killed the engine and turned to face her. Start from the beginning. The warehouse was exactly as Jake had described. Not comfortable, but defensible. A single entrance, high windows, clear sight lines. In the center sat a half-restored sailboat, its hull stripped to bare wood. Workbenches lined the walls covered with tools and marine supplies. A cot in the corner, a small kitchen setup, a portable heater fighting the dampness. Shadow immediately went to guard the door, lying down with his nose pointed toward the entrance. He'll alert us if anyone approaches, Jake said, handing Elena a bottle of water. Talk. Elena drank deeply, trying to organize the chaos in her head. I've worked for Vanguard for 5 years. I developed vaccine delivery systems for remote areas, places without proper refrigeration, without medical infrastructure. We supplied the programs that helped millions of children. Past tense. Because I found out it was a lie. Elena set down the bottle, her hands still trembling. 3 days ago, I ran a quality audit on a batch going to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Something in the data didn't match. The active ingredients were present, but the concentrations were off. Way off. Meaning the vaccines were essentially saline solution. Water and salt. No actual protection against anything. Jake leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. Could have been a manufacturing error. That's what I thought. So I checked another batch. Same thing. Then another. And another. Elena's voice rose with remembered horror. I spent 40 hours going through 3 years of records. 80% of the vaccines Vanguard shipped to developing countries contained less than 5% of the required active ingredients. 80%, sometimes higher. The batches sent to wealthy countries, to Europe, to the United States, those were fine. Full strength. But the ones going to Africa, to Southeast Asia, to South America, she couldn't finish. They were fake. Diluted to the point of uselessness. Children were being vaccinated against measles, against polio, against diphtheria, and they had no actual protection. When outbreaks hit those communities, her voice broke completely. Jake handed her a clean rag from the workbench. She pressed it against her face, muffling the sob that escaped. "How many?" he asked quietly. Elena looked up at him through tears. 47,000. That's what I found in the internal database. 47,000 children who died from diseases they should have been protected against. And those are just the ones Vanguard tracked. The real number is probably higher. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the rain on the metal roof seemed to hold its breath. "You confronted him," Jake said. It wasn't a question. "I thought there had to be an explanation. I thought maybe someone beneath him was responsible, and he didn't know." Elena laughed bitterly. "I walked into his office with printouts, with evidence, with proof that his company was committing genocide. I thought he'd be horrified. What did he do? He poured himself a scotch. He sat down in his leather chair, and he told me I was too smart for my own good." The memory hit Elena like a wave, pulling her under. Victor's office. The 63rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Diego. The sunset painting, everything gold. Victor Ashworth, silver-haired and distinguished, swirling amber liquid in a crystal glass. "Sit down, Elena." "Victor, did you hear what I said? The vaccines are fake. Children are dying." "I heard you." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I've always known." She remembered the feeling of her legs giving out, dropping into the chair across from his desk like a puppet with cut strings. "What?" "The profit margins are remarkable, actually. Manufacturing full-strength vaccines is expensive. All those active ingredients, the cold chain storage, the quality control. But saline solution, pennies per dose." He smiled, actually smiled, as if explaining a clever business strategy. "The aid organizations pay full price either way. They don't test what we send. They trust us. 47,000 children are dead. 47,000 children who would have grown up in poverty, consuming resources, adding to overpopulation, becoming burdens on an already strained system." Victor leaned forward, his eyes bright with something Elena had never seen before. "I'm not a monster, Elena. I'm a realist. The world cannot sustain unlimited population growth. Someone has to make the hard choices. You're killing children. I'm managing a crisis and funding the research that will eventually solve it properly." He gestured around his office at the awards on the walls, the photos with world leaders. "Do you know how many legitimate medical breakthroughs Vanguard has funded with the money we've saved cancer treatments? Gene therapies. Work that will save millions of lives in the developed world. By murdering thousands in the developing world. By making difficult calculations." Victor's tone shifted, hardening. "I had hoped you'd understand, Elena. You grew up poor. You've seen how limited resources are, how the system crushes people who can't contribute." I thought you of all people would appreciate the necessity of difficult choices. Elena stood backing toward the door. I'm going to the FDA, the WHO, the FBI. I'm going to tell everyone. No. Victor pressed a button on his desk. You're not. The door opened. 2 security guards entered, their faces blank. Dr. Mercer has suffered a psychological break, Victor said, his voice professionally concerned. She's been making delusional accusations. Please escort her to the wellness suite on 42. Victor, don't do this. It's for your own good, Elena. A few days of rest, some medication, and you'll see things more clearly. You'll understand that what I'm doing is necessary, and if you don't... He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The guards grabbed her arms. They kept me in a locked room for 2 days, Elena told Jake, her voice hollow. No phone, no computer, no contact with anyone. Victor visited once. He said he was giving me time to come to my senses. That once I accepted reality, we could move forward. How did you get out? There was a nurse, Maria. She brought my meals. On the second night, she left my door unlocked and turned off the corridor cameras for 10 minutes. Elena shook her head. I don't know if she suspected what was happening or if she just felt sorry for me. I ran. I made it to my office, grabbed the USB drive with the evidence, and got out through a service entrance. But they were waiting. Victor must have anticipated it. The team picked me up within 2 blocks of the building. I ran. They chased. She looked at Jake. Then you appeared. Jake was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd told him. The USB, he finally said. What's on it exactly? Everything. Batch numbers, distribution lists, concentration test results, financial records showing the cost savings, internal communications proving Victor knew. Elena reached into her pocket, pulling out the small silver drive. And the database. Every child. Names, locations, dates of death, vaccine batch numbers. 47,000 pieces of evidence that Victor Ashworth is a mass murderer. That's enough to destroy him. It would be, if I could access it. Elena's jaw tightened with frustration. Victor's paranoid about data security. The files are encrypted with a biometric lock. My fingerprint and retinal scan will decrypt the first layer, but there's a master key in the Vanguard mainframe that's required to complete the process. Meaning I can't just plug this into any computer and release it to the world. To fully decrypt the data and make it usable as evidence, I need to connect to Vanguard servers. Jake absorbed this. You'd have to go back inside. Into the building where Victor controls everything, where armed guards answer to him, where he's probably already destroyed every trace of what I found. Elena slumped against the boat hull. It's impossible. Shadow suddenly lifted his head, ears rotating toward the door. A low growl built in his chest. Jake was on his feet, instantly moving to the high window with fluid grace. He peered through the grimy glass into the night. We've got company. Elena's blood turned to ice. Already? How? Doesn't matter how. They're here. Jake moved rapidly, grabbing a flashlight and a coil of rope from the workbench. Back exit leads to the docks. Stay behind me. Stay quiet. My leg. Elena looked down. Her pants were torn at the shin blood seeping through from a gash she'd gotten during her escape. Adrenaline had masked the pain until now. Can you run? I don't have a choice. That's the right answer. Jake whistled softly. Shadow, come. The dog moved instantly to Jake's side, eyes bright, ready. Through the metal walls, Elena heard the rumble of engines. Not one vehicle. Multiple. How many? She whispered. Enough. Jake checked the back exit, then turned to her. When I tell you to run, you run. Don't stop. Don't look back. If I go down, you keep going. I'm not leaving you. You're not leaving me. You're completing the mission. His eyes locked onto hers with fierce intensity. 47,000 children, Elena. Their names are on that drive. If you die tonight, they stay invisible. If you live, you can make sure the world knows what happened to them. The engines were getting closer. I understand, Elena said. Good. Jake put his hand on the back door latch. Now run. The night air hit Elena's face like a slap as she burst through the exit. The docks stretched before her, a maze of shipping containers and industrial equipment illuminated by scattered yellow lights that created pools of visibility between vast stretches of shadow. Jake was beside her, Shadow racing ahead, the dog's dark form almost invisible against the night. Behind them, the warehouse door exploded inward. There, east side. Flashlight beams swept the area. Elena heard boots on gravel-coordinated movement, the crackle of radios. "Stay in the shadows," Jake ordered, grabbing her hand and pulling her between two shipping containers. "They've got numbers, but they don't know this area." "You do. I've been here 6 months. I know every hiding spot, every exit, every blind corner." He peered around the container edge. 3 teams, 4 men each. They're spreading out to box us in. "Can we get to your truck?" "Negative. They've got it surrounded." Jake's jaw tightened. "We need another way out." Shadow returned, pressing against Jake's leg, his eyes fixed on a point to their left. "What is it, boy?" The dog's nose twitched. He whined softly, insistently. "He smells something." Jake followed Shadow's gaze. "The ferry terminal. There's a maintenance boat tied up there, old but functional. Can you operate it? I can operate anything that floats." He squeezed her hand. "Stay with Shadow. He knows the way." They moved through the container maze, darting from shadow to shadow. Elena's legs screamed with every step, but she gritted her teeth and kept pace. The wound was bleeding more freely now, leaving a trail on the concrete. Jake noticed. "You're marking our path." "I know. I can't stop it." He pulled a bandana from his pocket, crouching to tie it tight around her shin without breaking stride. "That'll hold for a few minutes. Move." They emerged at the edge of the container yard. 50 yards of open ground separated them from the ferry terminal. The maintenance boat bobbed at a small dock, tantalizingly close. "We'll be exposed," Elena said. "Only option." Jake scanned the area. "Shadow, you go first. Create a diversion." The dog's ears perked up. He understood. "Go." Shadow launched into the open, racing not toward the dock, but angling left toward the ferry terminal's main building. His black form was visible for just a second before he disappeared around a corner. Shouts erupted. Flashlight beams swung toward the terminal. "Now," Jake said, pulling Elena forward. They ran. Elena had never run so fast in her life, her lungs burning her leg, threatening to buckle with every stride. The boat grew closer. 30 yards. 20. 10. A flashlight beam swept toward them. Jake shoved Elena down behind a pile of rope coils covering her body with his. The beam passed inches above their heads. "Clear this section, target went north." The beam moved on. Jake pulled Elena up, and they covered the final yards, tumbling onto the boat's deck. It was a small craft meant for harbor maintenance, with an enclosed cabin and a powerful outboard motor. "Stay down," Jake ordered, moving to the controls. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. A whistle cut through the night. Shadow came bounding down the dock, leaping onto the boat just as Jake threw it into reverse. "Stop, Federal Authority." They weren't federal anything, but it didn't matter. Bullets pinged off the water around them as Jake swung the boat in a tight arc, pointing toward the open bay. "Hold on!" The engine screamed as Jake pushed it to full throttle. The bow lifted and they shot into the darkness, leaving the lights of the harbor behind. Elena lay on the deck, gasping for air. Shadow pressed against her side. They were alive. For now. 20 minutes later, they were drifting in the darkness somewhere in San Diego Bay. The engine cut to avoid detection. The city lights glittered in the distance, beautiful and treacherous. Jake sat in the captain's chair, binoculars pressed to his eyes, scanning for pursuit. I don't see any boats following. They probably don't have maritime assets immediately available. So we're safe. We're not dead. That's different from safe. He lowered the binoculars. They'll have the Coast Guard looking for us by morning. Harbor Patrol, too. Elena pulled herself up to a seated position, wincing as her leg protested. Then what do we do? First, we deal with that wound properly. Jake moved to a first aid kit mounted on the cabin wall. Then we figure out how to get you into Vanguard's building without getting killed. You're still helping me after this? Jake crouched in front of her, opening the kit. Those men shot at us. They shot at my dog. His voice was flat, dangerous. Nobody shoots at my dog. Despite everything, Elena felt a small laugh bubble up. That's your reason? One of them. Jake began cleaning her wound with practiced efficiency. I also spent 3 months in a VA hospital trying to deal with what happens when I don't help people I can help. My therapist would be very disappointed if I walked away now. I don't understand. Syria, 6 months ago. My team was sent in on intelligence that turned out to be wrong. Maybe corrupt, maybe just wrong, doesn't matter which. 3 of my men died because someone somewhere made a decision that their lives were acceptable losses. His hands didn't pause in their work, but his voice tightened. I couldn't save them. I've been trying to figure out how to live with that ever since. Elena watched his face, seeing the ghosts behind his eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's not your burden. And he finished bandaging her leg and sat back. But this I can do something about. Victor Ashworth thinks he can decide who lives and who dies. He thinks he's above consequences. Jake's jaw set. I've met men like him before. They're wrong. They're always wrong. Even if we get into the building, even if I can access the servers, Victor controls everything. Security communications witnesses. He'll find a way to spin it. Then we need to make sure he can't spin it. Jake was quiet for a moment. The Vanguard Charity Gala. When is it? Elena's eyes widened. Tomorrow night. How did you know? It's been all over the news for weeks. Biggest philanthropic event of the year. Every news outlet in the country will be covering it. He met her eyes. Including live broadcasts. You want to expose him at the gala? I want to expose him to the world in real time before he can suppress anything. If we can broadcast his confession, get the evidence online during the event. He'll never confess publicly. He will if he thinks he's winning. Jake leaned forward. Men like Victor have egos. Massive egos. If he thinks he's got you cornered, if he thinks he's already won, he'll gloat. He won't be able to help himself. Elena considered this. Victor's office, his smug smile, his lecture about difficult choices. He did it before, she admitted, when he thought I was completely under his control. He told me everything because he wanted me to understand, to be impressed by his vision. Then we give him the same scenario. You walk in apparently defeated, apparently ready to surrender. I create chaos somewhere else in the building. You get to the servers, decrypt the data, and broadcast everything. Jake's eyes were hard, including whatever he says to you. It's insane. It's the only play we have. And Shadow put his head in Elena's lap, looking up at her with amber eyes that seemed to understand everything. 47,000 names, Elena whispered. 47,000 children who deserve justice. Then let's get them justice. Elena took a deep breath. She thought about her little brother dead at 4 years old from a disease a real vaccine would have prevented. She thought about Victor's smile, his talk of acceptable losses, his belief that he was above consequence. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." Jake nodded. "First we rest. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." He gestured toward the small cabin bench. "Sleep. I'll keep watch." "What about you?" "I've gone longer without sleep in worse situations." He settled into the captain's chair. "Shadow will wake me if anything changes." Elena stretched out on the bench, her body screaming with relief. Shadow jumped up and curled at her feet, his warm weight impossibly comforting. Through the cabin window, she could see the stars, distant and cold. Tomorrow night she would walk back into the monster's den. Tomorrow night she would make Victor Ashworth answer for 47,000 deaths. Or she would die trying. Elena woke to the sound of Shadow's low growl. Her eyes snapped open. Gray light filtered through the cabin windows. Morning. She'd slept longer than she intended. "Easy," Jake's voice came from outside. "It's just the harbor patrol. They're doing sweeps, but they're 2 miles out. We're hidden behind the breakwater." Elena sat up, her body protesting every movement. The wound on her leg throbbed beneath the bandage. Her muscles ached from running from fear from sleeping on a hard bench. But she was alive. She climbed out of the cabin to find Jake studying a laptop he'd pulled from a waterproof case. Shadow sat beside him, alert but calm. "Where did you get internet?" "Satellite hotspot. Military grade. Encrypted." Jake didn't look up. "I've been doing reconnaissance on Vanguard Tower. Security protocols, entry points, guard rotations." "How do you know all that?" "I called in a favor." He turned the laptop toward her. "Chief Petty Officer Danny Park. Old teammate. He works intelligence at Naval Base San Diego now. Owed me for saving his life in Fallujah." Elena looked at the screen. Floor plans, security schedules, personnel lists. This is incredible. It's a start, but there's a problem. Jake pointed to a section of the floor plan. The server room on the 40th floor. It's got biometric locks, armed guards, and a direct line to Victor's office. The moment you access those servers, he'll know. Then we need a distraction. A big one. Jake scrolled to another document. The gala tonight. 600 guests, live television coverage, the governor, 2 senators, and half the tech industry's biggest names. Victor's giving a speech at 9 o'clock. That's our window. Elena studied the timeline. If I can get to the servers while he's on stage, you'll have maybe 15 minutes before anyone notices you're missing from the party. That's assuming you can get past the checkpoints, access the restricted floors, and complete the decryption before security responds. It's not enough time. Which is why you're not going alone. Jake closed the laptop. "I'm coming with you." "Jake, you've already risked enough. 47,000 kids, Elena. You keep saying that number like it's an abstraction. It's not. Each one of those numbers was someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's little brother." His eyes met hers. "I spent 6 months trying to figure out how to make my life mean something after Syria. This is it. This is what I'm supposed to do." Shadow whined softly, pressing against Jake's leg. "Besides," Jake added, scratching the dog's ears, "Shadow hasn't had a good mission in 2 years. He's getting soft." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She'd spent 5 years surrounded by people who only cared about profit margins and career advancement. And here was a stranger willing to die for children he'd never met. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We've got 12 hours to turn you into someone who can survive a firefight." Elena blinked. "What?" Jake stood, pulling her to her feet. "Basic combat training. How to move, how to hide, how to fight if you have to. You're not going in there helpless." "I'm a scientist. I've never thrown a punch in my life." "Then it's time to learn." The next 6 hours were the most physically demanding of Elena's existence. Jake taught her how to fall without breaking bones, how to use her attacker's momentum against them, how to strike the throat, the eyes, the groin, where to aim if someone grabbed her from behind, how to turn everyday objects into weapons. "A pen through the neck will drop anyone," Jake said, demonstrating on an invisible target. "Keys between your fingers for a punch. Even a credit card can slice skin if you swing it right." Elena practiced until her muscles screamed, until sweat soaked through her clothes, until every movement became slightly less awkward. "You're not going to become a fighter overnight," Jake admitted. "But you might become hard enough to kill that someone hesitates. That hesitation is your window. To run, to survive." By afternoon, Elena's hands were raw and her confidence had shifted. Not transformed, but adjusted. She understood now that she wasn't completely defenseless. Jake handed her a bottle of water. "There's something else we need to discuss." "What?" "Your appearance." He gestured at her face. "Every camera in that building has your photo flagged. Facial recognition will pick you up in seconds." "Then how do I get in?" "We change what you look like." Jake pulled a small case from his bag. "Hair dye? Colored contacts? Makeup that alters your bone structure. It won't fool a deep scan, but it might buy you enough time to get past the initial checkpoints." Elena opened the case. Dark hair, dye green, contact lenses, prosthetic pieces for her cheeks and chin. "Where did you get these?" "Danny. Like I said, he owed me." Jake checked his watch. "We have 4 hours until the gala starts. Let's get to work." 2 hours later, Elena barely recognized herself in the small mirror Jake had mounted in the cabin. Her chestnut hair was now deep black, cut shorter styled differently. Green contacts transformed her brown eyes. Subtle prosthetics changed the shape of her face just enough to confuse the algorithms. "It's strange," she said, touching her reflection. "I look like a different person." "That's the idea." Jake was changing too, pulling on a catering staff uniform Danny had provided. "I'll go in as service staff. They're bringing in extra people for the event, so one more face won't raise flags." "What about Shadow?" The dog's ears perked up at his name. "He stays in the van until we need extraction." Jake knelt beside Shadow, taking the dog's face in his hands. "You hear that, boy? You wait for my signal. Don't come in until I call." Shadow whined in protest. "I know, I don't like it either, but you're our backup plan. If everything goes wrong, you're getting Elena out." The dog seemed to understand. He licked Jake's face once, then sat back, resolute. Elena's phone buzzed. Not her phone, the burner Jake had given her. "Danny," Jake said, checking the message. "He's got the van in position. Parking garage 2 blocks from Vanguard Tower." He looked at Elena. "It's time." The boat ride back to shore was tense and silent. Elena watched the city grow larger, the towers reaching toward the sky, Vanguard's building standing tallest among them. Somewhere in that building, Victor Ashworth was preparing for his moment of triumph. He thought he'd won. He thought Elena was running scared, hiding in some hole waiting to be found and eliminated. He had no idea what was coming. The van was exactly where Danny promised, a nondescript white panel van with fake catering company logos. Shadow jumped into the back, settling onto a blanket Jake had laid out. "Radio check," Jake said, handing Elena a tiny earpiece. "Channel 3. Keep it in at all times. If we get separated, this is how we stay connected." Elena fitted the device into her ear. "Testing." "I hear you." "Good." Jake checked his own earpiece, then pulled on a catering jacket. "Remember the plan. You enter through the main entrance with this invitation." He handed her an embossed card. "You're Rebecca Torres, VP of Development at a non-profit called Global Children's Health Initiative. It's real enough to pass basic scrutiny. And if they ask questions, you smile, you name drop, you act like you belong. The secret to infiltration isn't invisibility. It's confidence. You walk like you own the place people assume you do. Elena took a breath. What about you? Service entrance east side. I'll work my way up through the building while you're schmoozing at the party. By the time Victor takes the stage, I'll be in position near the server room. And then, you excuse yourself to the restroom. Take the service elevator to 40. I'll have the door open. Jake's eyes were steady. We'll have maybe 12 minutes before someone notices you're gone. It's not much time. It's enough. It has to be. He reached out, squeezing her shoulder. You can do this, Elena. You've already survived things that would have broken most people. This is just one more night. And if Victor catches me, he won't. Jake's voice hardened. Because I'll be there. And nothing is getting through me to reach you. Not tonight. Elena nodded. She wanted to say something more. Something that captured what his help meant to her, but there were no words sufficient. Let's go, she said instead. The Vanguard Tower lobby was overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, towering floral arrangements. San Diego's elite glittered in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, champagne glasses catching the light. Elena moved through the crowd with practiced calm, her heart hammering beneath her elegant black dress. The invitation had worked. The security guard had glanced at her face, checked her name against a list, and waved her through. So far, so good. I'm inside, she murmured, barely moving her lips. Jake's voice crackled in her ear. Copy. I'm in the service corridors heading for the east stairwell. Stay visible. Mingle. Elena grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, more for camouflage than thirst. She scanned the room, cataloging exits, security positions, potential obstacles. And then she saw him. Victor Ashworth stood near the stage, surrounded by admirers. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, his silver hair gleaming, his smile radiant. He looked like exactly what he pretended to be: a philanthropist, a visionary, a man dedicated to saving the world's children. Elena's stomach turned. He was shaking hands with the governor, laughing at something the man said. Elena watched him touch the governor's shoulder, the gesture somehow both warm and possessive. She turned away before he could sense her stare. Target is near the stage, she reported. He looks relaxed. Good. Keep him in your peripheral vision, but don't engage. Not yet. Elena circulated through the crowd, nodding at strangers, pretending to care about conversations she couldn't hear over the blood rushing in her ears. She was acutely aware of every camera, every security guard, every potential trap. Dr. Mercer. Elena froze. The voice came from behind her. She turned slowly, preparing to run, preparing to fight, preparing for everything to fall apart. The woman facing her was elderly 70, at least, with kind eyes and silver hair pinned beneath a sapphire-studded headband. I'm sorry, Elena said carefully. I think you have me confused with someone else. The woman frowned. No, I'm certain. You're Elena Mercer, Victor's protégé. He showed me your photo just last week, said you were the most brilliant mind he'd ever worked with. Elena's blood turned to ice. She could feel cameras tracking her security protocols, activating the trap closing. I'm Rebecca Torres, she said, forcing a smile. I get that a lot, actually. Must have one of those faces. The woman studied her for a long moment. Elena held her breath. How strange, the woman finally said. The resemblance is remarkable. But of course, if you were Dr. Mercer, you wouldn't be here, would you? Victor said she's unwell. Such a tragedy. Yes, Elena managed. Such a tragedy. And the woman patted her arm sympathetically and drifted away. Close call, Jake's voice said in her ear. You handled it well? Too close. Elena moved toward the edge of the crowd, seeking shadow. How much longer? Victor takes the stage in 20 minutes. That's when you make your move. 20 minutes. Elena counted heartbeats, trying to slow her breathing. She found a pillar to lean against, using it to shield herself from the main floor. Ladies and gentlemen. The announcement came from the stage. A young woman in a red dress was tapping a microphone. Please take your seats. Tonight's program will begin shortly. Our host, Mr. Victor Ashworth, has a very special announcement to share with you all. The crowd began moving toward the tables arranged around the stage. Elena stayed on her feet, positioning herself near the service corridor Jake had identified. Elena, Jake's voice was urgent. We have a problem. What? Marcus Cole just entered the building. He's got 6 men with him. Elena's blood went cold. Marcus Cole, Victor's head of security, the man who'd led the kill team. Does he know I'm here? I don't think so, but he's not dressed for the party. He's dressed for work. Jake paused. Something's wrong. Victor's moving up whatever he's planning. On stage, Victor Ashworth stepped to the podium. The applause was thunderous. Thank you, Victor said, his voice rich and warm. Thank you all for being here tonight. Your generosity has touched millions of lives around the world. Elena watched him, hatred burning in her chest. But tonight, I'm afraid I must address a difficult matter before we continue. The crowd went quiet. As many of you know, my company recently suffered a terrible breach. A trusted employee, someone I loved like a daughter, has betrayed everything we stand for. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Elena Mercer is mentally ill. She has stolen sensitive data and made wild accusations against Vanguard and against me personally. I tell you this not to garner sympathy, but to warn you. Elena felt the walls closing in. I have received word, Victor continued, his voice heavy with false sorrow, that Elena may be here tonight, that she intends to disrupt this event and spread her delusions to the world. Gasps from the crowd. Security guards began moving through the room, scanning faces. I ask for your patience as my security team ensures your safety. And if Elena is here... Victor's eyes swept the room. I want you to know that I forgive you. I want to help you. Please turn yourself in. Let me get you the treatment you need. Elena, get out now. Jake's voice was sharp. They're doing facial recognition sweeps. Your disguise won't hold under direct analysis. But Elena couldn't move, because Victor's eyes had stopped. They were looking directly at her. For a moment, neither of them breathed. Then Victor smiled, a small, private smile that said, I see you. Security, Victor said calmly into the microphone. Please escort the woman by the east pillar to my office. She appears to be unwell. Everything happened at once. Guards converged from 3 directions. The crowd parted, confused and frightened. Elena bolted. She ran through the service corridor, her heels clicking against the tile. Behind her, shouts, footsteps, the sound of pursuit. Jake, I'm burned. I know, change of plans. Service elevator, end of the hall. I'm overriding the locks now. Elena ran. Her disguise was useless now, but she didn't care. All that mattered was reaching the elevator. She rounded a corner and slammed into a body. Marcus Cole. He was bigger than she remembered. Broader. His face was scarred from where Shadow had attacked him during their escape. Hello, Dr. Mercer, he said, reaching for her. Elena didn't think. She remembered Jake's training. She drove her palm up into Marcus's nose with every ounce of strength she had. Bone crunched. Blood sprayed. Marcus staggered backward more from surprise than pain. But it was enough. Elena sprinted past him. The elevator doors were opening. Jake was inside. Move! She dove through the doors as Jake hit the close button. Bullets sparked off the metal frame as the doors slid shut. They were rising. "Are you hurt?" Jake demanded, checking her for wounds. "No, just scared." Elena was shaking so hard she could barely stand. "Victor knows I'm here. He announced it to everyone." "Which means the game has changed." Jake pulled out a pistol. "Danny's backup weapon. I was hoping we wouldn't need it." "The servers. Can we still reach them?" "That's where we're going. But we'll have company." Jake checked the magazine. "When those doors open, stay behind me. Do exactly what I say." The elevator climbed. 36th floor, 37th, 38th. "Jake, yeah. I'm sorry for getting you into this." He looked at her, really looked, and something in his eyes softened. "Don't be. This is the most alive I've felt in 6 months." He raised the pistol as the elevator slowed. "Now let's go save 47,000 kids." The doors opened. 3 guards were waiting, weapons drawn. Jake moved like water. 2 shots precise and deadly. 2 guards dropped. The third managed to fire once before Jake's third bullet caught him in the chest. "Clear. Move." Elena followed him into the corridor, stepping over bodies, trying not to think about what had just happened. These men worked for Victor. They were complicit in murder, but they were still human beings. "Don't freeze," Jake said, reading her thoughts. "They would have killed you without hesitation. Save your conscience for later." The server room was at the end of the hall, a heavy steel door with a biometric panel. "This is it," Elena said. "I need my fingerprint and retinal scan." She pressed her thumb to the pad, looked into the scanner. The machine hummed. "Access denied." "No," Elena whispered. "No, no, no." "What's wrong?" "Victor purged me from the system. My biometrics don't work anymore." Jake stared at the door, then at her. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. The encryption requires my specific biometric signature registered in the Vanguard database. Without that..." Elena felt tears burning her eyes. "It's over. We came all this way, and it's over." "The hell it is." Jake grabbed her arm. "Victor can add people to the database, which means he can restore you. We find him, we make him do it. He'll never agree. He will when I have a gun to his head." Behind them, the elevator dinged. More guards were coming. "We're out of time," Jake said. "Back stairwell. Now!" They ran. Elena's mind was spinning. This wasn't the plan. Nothing was going according to plan. But Jake was right. Victor was the key. He could restore her access. He could be forced to undo his own security. They burst into the stairwell just as gunfire erupted behind them. "Up or down?" Elena gasped. "Up. Victor's office is on 63. They climbed. Elena's legs burned. Her wound had reopened, blood seeping through the bandage. 42nd floor. 45th. 50th. "I can't," Elena panted. "I can't keep going." "Yes, you can." Jake grabbed her hand, pulling her forward. "You survived a kill team. You survived torture. You survived running through the night with mercenaries on your heels. You are not going to die in a stairwell." 55th floor. 60th. The door to 63 was locked. Jake shot the lock, kicked the door open. They emerged into a hallway of polished marble and original art. Victor's private floor. "His office is at the end," Elena said. "Big doors. You can't miss it." They moved down the hall. No guards here. Victor's arrogance was showing. He never expected anyone to get this far. Jake kicked in the office doors. Victor Ashworth sat behind his desk, perfectly calm, a glass of scotch in his hand. "Hello, Elena," he said, not bothering to stand. "I was wondering when you'd make it up here." Jake raised his pistol. "Don't move." Victor laughed softly. A Navy SEAL. Yes, I know who you are, Commander Reyes. Did you think I wouldn't research the man who interfered with my operation? I know about Syria. I know about your dead friends. I know about your psychiatric evaluation. Shut up. You're here because you're trying to redeem yourself, to prove that your life has meaning after all those failures. Victor sipped his scotch. I can respect that. Misguided but respectable. Restore Elena's biometric access, Jake said, keeping the pistol steady. Now. Or what you'll kill me. Victor shrugged. If I die, the evidence dies with me. The encryption will never be broken. 47,000 deaths will remain invisible forever. You'll restore my access, Elena said, stepping forward. Because you want me to see what you've done. You want someone to understand your vision. You always did. Victor's eyes flickered with interest. Go on. You told me in your office that you hoped I'd understand, that I would see the necessity of your choices. You didn't just want to silence me. You wanted to convert me. Elena moved closer, her voice steady despite her terror. Prove it. Give me access. Show me everything. Convince me you're right. Victor studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. You've changed, Elena. You're harder than you were. I wonder if I should be proud. He turned to his computer, typed a series of commands. The screen flashed. Your access is restored, but you won't find what you're looking for. The servers have been wiped. Every trace of the evidence is gone. Elena's heart stopped. You're lying. Am I? Victor leaned back in his chair. I've had 3 days to prepare for this moment. Do you really think I'd leave anything to chance? Behind them, the office doors opened. Marcus Cole stepped through his nose, bandaged his eyes, burning with hatred. 6 armed men flanked him. Ah, Victor said pleasantly. Perfect timing. Commander Reyes, I'm afraid your heroic journey ends here. Jake's pistol swung toward Marcus Cole, but 6 barrels were already trained on his chest. The math was simple. He might take 2, maybe 3, before they cut him down. Elena would die seconds after. He lowered the weapon. Smart choice, Marcus said, stepping forward to snatch the pistol from Jake's hand. I owe you for this nose seal. And the dog bite. I'm going to enjoy collecting. Touch him, and I won't cooperate, Elena said, her voice cutting through the tension. You want me compliant, Victor? Keep your attack dog on a leash. Victor raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating from this position. I'm stating facts. You restored my access because you want something. You want me to understand, to validate your vision. Elena forced herself to meet his eyes. You can't get that from a corpse. Victor considered this. Then he nodded to Marcus. Stand down, for now. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he stepped back. His men kept their weapons raised. You know, Victor said, rising from his desk, I've thought about this moment for 3 days. How it would feel to have you back in this room. I imagined anger, betrayal, the usual emotional dramatics. He walked toward her slowly. But instead I feel hopeful. You came back. You fought through my security, risked everything just to stand here again. That tells me something. It tells you I want justice. It tells me you're not ready to let go. Victor stopped inches from her face. You could have run, disappeared, started over somewhere far away. But you didn't, because some part of you still believes I might be right. You're insane. Am I? Victor's voice softened. Elena, look at the world. Really look. 7 billion people, and the number grows every day. Resources shrinking. Climate collapsing. Wars over water. Famines spreading. Someone has to make the hard choices that politicians are too weak to make. By killing children, by managing population in regions that can't sustain growth, the vaccines we send to developed nations work perfectly. Those children grow up to become doctors, engineers, innovators. They contribute. They advance humanity. Victor's eyes gleamed with fervor. But in regions where poverty is endemic, where infrastructure doesn't exist, where every life saved becomes a burden on an already broken system, different calculations apply. Elena felt sick. You're playing God. Someone has to. Victor spread his hands. I've saved more lives with my medical research than those vaccines would have protected. Cancer treatments funded by the cost savings. Gene therapies. Breakthroughs that will benefit humanity for generations. It's a trade-off. Mathematics, nothing personal. 47,000 children is nothing personal. 47,000 children who would have grown up in poverty produced more children, consumed more resources, and died in misery anyway. Victor shook his head sadly. I gave them a quicker end. A mercy, really. Jake lunged forward, but Marcus slammed a fist into his wounded shoulder. Jake dropped to his knees, gasping. Careful, Commander, Victor said mildly. My patience has limits. Elena knelt beside Jake, her hands shaking as she touched his shoulder. The bandage was soaked with fresh blood. Why are you telling me this? She demanded, looking up at Victor. If the servers are wiped, if the evidence is gone, why explain yourself? Because I want you to write it down. Elena blinked. What? A confession. A full account of your mental breakdown. How you imagined conspiracies that didn't exist. How you stole harmless files and interpreted them through a paranoid lens. Victor returned to his desk, pulling a document from a drawer. Sign this and you walk out of here. I'll arrange psychiatric care. In a year, maybe 2, when you're stable, you can resume your career. Somewhere quiet, away from sensitive work. And if I refuse, then Commander Reyes dies first, slowly, while you watch. Victor's voice didn't change. Then you die. The official story will be that he was a deranged veteran who attacked the gala and took you hostage. Murder-suicide. Very tragic. Elena looked at the document. At Jake bleeding on the floor. At Marcus Cole's eager smile. She thought about 47,000 names. I'll sign, she said. Elena, don't, Jake started. I'll sign, Elena repeated, standing. But I want to see the servers first. I want to verify that the evidence is actually gone. Otherwise, how do I know you won't kill us anyway? Victor studied her face. You don't trust me. You just admitted to killing children. Trust seems premature. Something like respect flickered in Victor's eyes. Fair enough. Marcus, escort them to the server room. Let Dr. Mercer confirm that her crusade was pointless. Sir, I didn't ask what you think. Victor's voice sharpened. Do it. Marcus's expression soured, but he gestured to his men. Move. They walked through the corridors in tight formation, Elena and Jake in the center guards on all sides. Jake was limping heavily, one hand pressed against his bleeding shoulder. What are you doing? He whispered. Trust me. Elena, trust me. They reached the server room. The same heavy door, the same biometric panel. Open it, Marcus ordered. Elena pressed her thumb to the scanner, looked into the retinal reader. Access granted. The door clicked open. Inside, rows of black server racks hummed in the blue-lit darkness. Elena walked to the central terminal, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She plugged in her USB drive. The screen flickered. A password prompt appeared. This is pointless, Marcus said. The drives are wiped. We watched Victor do it himself. Elena ignored him. She typed a command sequence. The screen changed. Backup recovery initiated. Marcus stepped forward. What is that something Victor forgot? Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard. When I built this system, I created a failsafe, a hidden partition that automatically backs up critical data every 72 hours. It's stored in a separate array, isolated from the main network. That's impossible. We checked. You checked what I wanted you to check. Elena turned to face him. I designed this architecture, Marcus. Every firewall, every protocol, every hidden corner. Did you really think I wouldn't build myself a back door? On-screen files began appearing. Thousands of them. Batch numbers, distribution records, death certificates, financial transactions, 47,000 names. Kill her. Marcus raised his weapon. Jake moved. Despite the blood loss, despite the pain, despite everything, he was still a SEAL. His elbow cracked against Marcus's jaw. His good hand grabbed the rifle barrel, twisting it away. A shot rang out, shattering a server rack. Elena dove behind the terminal as chaos erupted. Jake was fighting 3 men at once, using Marcus as a shield, driving them backward through sheer ferocity. She kept typing. The upload had to complete. Everything depended on it. Uploading to external servers, 12%. Elena, Jake shouted. How long? 2 minutes. I don't have 2 minutes. A guard broke free from the melee charging toward her. Elena grabbed the keyboard and swung it like a bat. The impact sent him staggering. She'd never hit anyone with an object before. The shock of it vibrated through her arms. The man came back. Blood on his face. Murder in his eyes. Jake appeared behind him, arm around his throat, squeezing until the man went limp. Keep working. Uploading 34%. More guards poured through the door. Jake grabbed a fallen rifle, firing in controlled bursts. Bodies dropped. Others took cover. They're calling for backup, one of them shouted. Uploading 51%. Marcus Cole rose from the floor, blood streaming from his nose, his broken jaw hanging at an angle. He should have been incapacitated. Instead, he charged at Jake with the mindless rage of a wounded animal. The 2 men crashed into a server rack, bringing it down with them. Sparks flew. The lights flickered, uploading 67%. Elena watched Jake and Marcus grapple on the floor, fists and elbows flying. Jake was faster, but Marcus was fresher. Every blow to Jake's wounded shoulder made him gasp in agony. She had to help. She couldn't just stand here. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. Uploading 78%. Marcus had gotten on top of Jake, hands around his throat, squeezing. Jake's face was turning red, then purple. Elena swung the extinguisher. It connected with the back of Marcus's skull, with a sound she would never forget. The big man collapsed sideways. He didn't get up. Jake gasped for air, rolling onto his side, coughing violently. Is he dead? Elena asked, her voice shaking. Don't care. The uploading 89%. Almost there. We're out of time. Jake pulled himself to his feet, swaying. More are coming. I can hear them in the stairwell. Uploading 94%. Just a few more seconds. The lights went out. Emergency red lighting kicked in. The servers continued humming on backup power, but the terminal screen went dark. No. Elena slammed her hands on the keyboard. No, no, no. Victor killed the power, Jake said grimly. He's trying to stop the upload. The servers are on batteries. The upload might still be running. Elena stared at the dark screen. I can't tell. I can't see if it completed. Footsteps thundered in the corridor. Lots of them. Elena, we have to move. I need to know. We need to survive. Jake grabbed her arm. Back exit, emergency stairs. They ran. Through the darkness, through the emergency lighting that painted everything in shades of blood. Behind them, shouts. Gunfire. Jake led them through corridors Elena didn't recognize, moving by instinct or memory. His shoulder was bleeding heavily now, leaving a trail. "You're going to bleed out," Elena said. "Probably. Keep moving." They burst through a door into a stairwell. Down. They needed to go down. But footsteps were coming up. "Roof," Jake said, changing direction. "We go up." "There's no escape from the roof. There's always an escape. Move." They climbed. Elena's legs screamed. Her lungs burned. Jake was worse, each step costing him something he couldn't afford to spend. 64th floor. 65th. The door to the roof. Jake shot the lock. They burst into the night air. Wind hit Elena's face, cold and sharp. The roof was a maze of HVAC units and satellite dishes, but beyond them, the lights of San Diego spread out like a carpet of stars. "Now what?" Elena demanded. Jake stumbled to the edge, looking down. 63 stories. The street below was invisible in the darkness. "Jake!" He pulled out his phone, punched in a number. "Danny, we're on the roof. I need extraction. Yes, right now. As fast as you can get here." He hung up. "Danny has a helicopter. Danny has friends with helicopters." Jake collapsed against an air conditioning unit, his face gray. 20 minutes. We just have to survive 20 minutes. "You don't have 20 minutes." Elena knelt beside him, pulling at his jacket. The wound beneath was worse than she'd feared. Much worse. "Jake, you're dying." "Been dying for 6 months. What's a little more? This isn't funny." "Not trying to be funny." He caught her hand. "Elena, listen. If I don't make it, you need to get to Naval Base San Diego. Find Danny Park. Tell him everything. He'll make sure the evidence reaches the right people." The upload might have completed, and it might not have. You need a backup plan. His grip tightened. "Promise me." Tears burned Elena's eyes. This man, this stranger, was giving his life for children he'd never met. For justice he'd never see. "I promise." "Good." Jake's eyes closed. "Good." The roof access door exploded open. Victor Ashworth stepped through, flanked by 6 guards. He wasn't calm anymore. His suit was disheveled, his silver hair wild, his eyes blazing with fury. "Enough!" he shouted. "This ends now!" Elena stood, positioning herself between Victor and Jake's unconscious form. "The upload completed," she said. "It's over. The FBI, the WHO, every news outlet in the world has the evidence by now." "You're bluffing." "Am I? You killed the power too late. The servers were on backup batteries. The transfer finished before your people even reached the room." Victor's face contorted. "You don't know that. Neither do you." Elena spread her arms. "So what now? Kill me, kill him. The evidence is already out there. Killing us won't save you. It will satisfy me." Victor pulled a pistol from inside his jacket. Not an elegant weapon. Something practical. Deadly. "I built you," he said, advancing. "I found you in that third-rate university. I saw your potential. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me. You killed my brother." Victor stopped. "What?" "When I was 8 years old, my baby brother died from measles, in a village in the Philippines. The vaccines we received came from an aid program funded by Vanguard." Elena's voice shook, but she didn't break. "You killed him, and 47,000 others like him." Something shifted in Victor's expression. Not guilt. He was incapable of that. But recognition. "Interesting," he murmured. "I always wondered what drove you. What made you so passionate about vaccine delivery? It was personal all along." "Everything is personal. Every one of those numbers was someone's child. someone's brother, someone's whole world. Sentiment. Victor raised the pistol. This is why you'll never understand what I've built. You think small, individual lives, individual tragedies. I think in generations, in millions, in the future of humanity itself. You think in profit margins. Those two. He aimed at her chest. Goodbye, Elena. I'll remember you as the one who almost stopped me. A shadow launched from the rooftop darkness. Shadow. The German shepherd hit Victor like a missile, 80 pounds of muscle and fury driving the billionaire backward. The pistol fired wild, the bullet sparking off metal somewhere distant. Victor screamed as Shadow's jaws clamped onto his arm. Get him off! Get him off! The guards raised their weapons, but they couldn't shoot without hitting Victor. Elena ran to Jake, shaking him. Jake, wake up. His eyes fluttered open. Shadow, he's here. He came. When Jake's cracked lips formed something like a smile. Good boy. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small device. A radio transmitter. Shadow, he rasped. Release. Guard. The dog let go of Victor's arm but didn't retreat. He stood over the fallen billionaire, teeth bared a growl rumbling from his chest. Victor clutched his mangled arm, blood soaking his sleeve. The guards stood frozen, unsure. Sir, one of them asked. Shoot them, Victor screamed. Shoot all of them! The guards raised their weapons. The sky exploded with light. A helicopter roared over the rooftop edge, its spotlight blinding its rotors, creating a hurricane of wind. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Federal agents, drop your weapons. This building is surrounded. Elena looked up to see the helicopter's side door slide open. Danny Park stood there, rifle in hand, covering them. Jake, Elena, get in. The guards hesitated. Then, one by one, they dropped their weapons. Victor Ashworth tried to rise. Shadow pushed him back down with a paw on his chest. It's over, Victor, Elena said, looking down at the man who had stolen so much from so many. Everyone knows what you did. Everyone. Victor's eyes were wild, desperate. They'll never convict me. I have lawyers. I have connections. I'll be out in a year, and when I am, you'll be in prison forever. Elena pulled out her phone. Her regular phone, the one Jake had smashed. The one she'd had Danny replace. The screen showed a live stream. Victor's face. His voice. 47,000 children who would have grown up in poverty. I gave them a quicker end. A mercy, really. His confession. Broadcast to the world. You were broadcasting, Victor's voice cracked. The whole time. Elena pocketed the phone. I told you, Victor. I designed every system in this building, including the security cameras, including the audio feeds, including the emergency broadcast protocols. Victor stared at her, understanding dawning. You planned this. All of it. From the moment you walked into the gala. I had help. Elena knelt beside Jake, helping him toward the helicopter. From a Navy SEAL who believes that every life matters, and a dog who never gives up. Shadow barked once, triumphant. Danny reached down to help Jake into the helicopter. Elena climbed in after him, then turned to whistle for Shadow. The dog bounded across the roof, leaping into the helicopter with athletic grace. As they lifted off, Elena looked down at Victor Ashworth surrounded by federal agents, his empire crumbling around him. He looked small from up here. He looked like exactly what he was. A murderer. A monster. A man who had thought himself above consequence. She'd proven him wrong. The helicopter touched down at Naval Base San Diego 17 minutes after leaving Vanguard Tower. Medical teams were already waiting stretchers, ready trauma surgeons standing by. Elena refused to let go of Jake's hand as they loaded him onto the gurney. His face was gray, his breathing shallow blood soaking through the field dressing Danny had applied during the flight. "He's lost too much blood," the lead surgeon said, checking Jake's vitals. "We need to get him into surgery immediately. Is he going to make it?" The surgeon didn't answer. They never did when the answer might be no. "Ma'am, you need to let go." Elena released Jake's hand. He was unconscious now, had been since they'd lifted off from the roof. She watched them wheel him through the base hospital doors, and something in her chest cracked open. Shadow whined beside her, pressing against her leg. "He's going to be okay," she whispered, as much to herself as to the dog. "He has to be." Danny Park appeared at her elbow. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a competent bearing that reminded her of Jake. "Dr. Mercer, we need to debrief you. The FBI is already here." "The broadcast, did it work?" "Ma'am, it more than worked." Danny's expression shifted to something like awe. "Victor Ashworth's confession is playing on every news channel in the country. It's gone viral internationally. The WHO has already issued an emergency recall of all Vanguard vaccines. Interpol is coordinating arrests across 12 countries." Elena's knees buckled. Danny caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy. When's the last time you slept properly?" "I don't remember." "Then let's get you some food and a chair. The FBI can wait 30 minutes. They set her up in a small conference room with coffee sandwiches and a television showing the news coverage. Shadow lay at her feet, refusing to leave her side. On screen, Victor Ashworth's face played on endless loop, his words captured by the security system Elena had hijacked, broadcast to the world. 47,000 children who would have grown up in poverty. I gave them a quicker end. A mercy, really. The anchor's voice cut in. These shocking admissions from pharmaceutical billionaire Victor Ashworth have sent shockwaves through the global health community. World leaders are calling for immediate investigations. Protests have erupted outside Vanguard facilities in 16 countries. They showed footage of crowds gathering, candles being lit, parents holding photographs of children lost to preventable diseases. Elena turned away. She couldn't watch anymore. The FBI arrived in force. Special Agent Catherine Walsh led the team, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that had seen everything. "Dr. Mercer, I'm going to be straight with you. What you did tonight was reckless, dangerous, and completely unauthorized." Walsh sat across from her folder, open. "You could have gotten yourself killed. You could have gotten Commander Reyes killed. You interfered with what should have been a federal investigation." "There was no federal investigation," Elena said quietly. "I went to the authorities 3 days ago, before Victor locked me up. The local FBI field office told me they'd look into it. Then nothing happened." Walsh's expression tightened. "We're aware of that failure. Certain individuals within the San Diego field office had financial relationships with Vanguard. They've been placed on administrative leave, pending investigation." "So you're telling me the system was compromised? That if I'd waited for proper channels, I'd be dead, and Victor would still be free?" "I'm telling you that your methods were unorthodox." Walsh paused. "I'm also telling you off the record that those methods worked. The evidence you recovered and broadcast is irrefutable. Victor Ashworth will spend the rest of his life in prison. His network is being dismantled as we speak." Elena felt something release in her chest, a tension she'd been carrying for days. "What happens now? Now you give us everything, every detail, every conversation, every piece of evidence you have." Walsh leaned forward. "And then you testify, before Congress, before the International Criminal Court, before anyone who needs to hear what happened." "I'll do whatever it takes." I thought you might say that. Walsh's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, Dr. Mercer, what you did tonight took extraordinary courage. Most people would have run, would have hidden, would have let someone else fight this battle. I couldn't. Elena looked down at Shadow, who raised his head at her attention. Someone once told me that I couldn't save everyone, but I could save the people right in front of me. 47,000 children weren't in front of me anymore, but their names were. Their stories were. That was enough. The debriefing lasted 6 hours. Elena told them everything from the moment she discovered the discrepancies in the vaccine data to the confrontation on the roof. She answered every question, clarified every detail, signed every document. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking over the base. One more thing, Walsh said as Elena stood to leave. Commander Reyes, he's out of surgery. Elena's heart stopped. And he's going to make it. Doctors say he's too stubborn to die. Walsh almost smiled. He's asking for you. Room 217. Elena ran. The hospital corridor was quiet at this hour. Elena's footsteps echoed as she searched for room 217, Shadow padding beside her. She found it, hesitated at the door. What do you say to someone who almost died for you? She pushed the door open. Jake was propped up in the hospital bed, lines running into his arm monitors, beeping steadily. His shoulder was heavily bandaged, his face pale, but alert. Shadow bounded into the room, tail wagging furiously. He put his paws on the bed, licking Jake's face. Easy, boy. Easy. Jake's voice was weak but warm. I'm okay. I'm okay. Elena stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. You're crying, Jake observed. You almost died. Occupational hazard. He gestured to the chair beside his bed. Sit. You look worse than I feel. Elena laughed through her tears and sat down. Shadow settled on the floor between them, his head resting on his paws, his eyes moving between his two favorite humans. The upload worked, Elena said. The whole world knows what Victor did. I heard. Nurses had the news on during my surgery. Apparently I was unconscious but still asked about you twice. Jake shook his head. No memory of that. You asked about me. According to the anesthesiologist, I was very insistent. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Something about 47,000 kids. Elena reached out and took his hand. He didn't pull away. Jake, I don't know how to thank you. You risked everything. Your life, your career, everything. I'd do it again. I know. That's what terrifies me. And they sat in comfortable silence. The monitors beeped. Shadow snored softly. What happens now? Jake asked. For you, FBI wants me to testify. Congress, International Criminal Court, the whole circus. Elena sighed. I'll be telling this story for years. That's good. The world needs to hear it. What about you? Jake was quiet for a moment. My leave is up in 2 weeks. I was supposed to report back to my unit. Supposed to. Danny tells me there might be other options. Consulting work with the DOJ. Training programs for federal agencies. He looked at her. Turns out saving the world from pharmaceutical genocide looks good on a resume. You're leaving the SEALs. I don't know yet. Maybe. The things I saw in Syria, the things I couldn't stop. Jake's jaw tightened. I used to think I could make a difference from inside the system. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe I can do more good out here, fighting battles that don't require a uniform. Elena squeezed his hand. Whatever you decide, you won't be alone. Is that a promise? It's a fact. The door opened. Danny Park stepped in, looking uncomfortable. Sorry to interrupt. Dr. Mercer, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Who? She wouldn't give her name, but she's crying, and she's holding a photograph. Elena frowned and stood. "I'll be right back," she told Jake. In the waiting room, a woman sat hunched in a plastic chair. She was middle-aged, her face weathered by grief, her hands clutching a framed photograph like a lifeline. "Dr. Mercer." The woman stood when Elena approached. "I'm sorry to bother you. I know you've been through so much. But I had to come. I had to thank you." "Thank me for what?" The woman held out the photograph. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, grinning at the camera, missing his 2 front teeth, full of life. "This is my son, Daniel. He died 3 years ago in Nigeria. Measles outbreak. He'd been vaccinated, but..." Her voice broke. "The vaccines didn't work. The doctors couldn't understand why." Elena's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry. I blamed myself. For years I blamed myself. Thought I hadn't taken good enough care of him. Thought I'd failed as a mother." Tears streamed down the woman's face. "Then I saw the news this morning, and I understood. It wasn't my fault. It was never my fault." She pressed the photograph into Elena's hands. "You gave me my son back. Not alive, but I can finally let go of the guilt. I can finally grieve properly, because now I know the truth." Elena looked at the photograph. Daniel's eyes seemed to look back at her. One of 47,000. One of countless more who would never be counted. "I didn't do this alone," Elena whispered. "There was a man. A soldier. He risked everything to help me." "Then thank him too. Thank everyone who made this possible." The woman took back the photograph, holding it to her chest. "My son didn't die in vain anymore. That's all I needed to know." She walked away, disappearing into the morning light. Elena stood, frozen tears running down her cheeks. Danny appeared beside her. "You okay?" "No." Elena wiped her eyes. "But I will be." The next 72 hours were chaos. Victor Ashworth was formally charged with 47,000 counts of murder conspiracy to commit fraud and crimes against humanity. His lawyers tried to get him bail. The judge laughed. Marcus Cole, still hospitalized with a fractured skull and severe dog bite wounds, was charged as an accomplice. His mercenary team was rounded up within hours, their loyalty evaporating the moment they realized their paychecks were worthless. Vanguard Pharmaceuticals collapsed overnight. Stock price dropped to 0. Executives fled. The board of directors issued a statement of shock and dismay that fooled absolutely no one. Elena became the face of the scandal. Every news outlet wanted an interview. Every talk show wanted her story. She declined them all for now. There would be time for that later. First, she had work to do. The WHO appointed her to lead the emergency task force investigating Vanguard's vaccine distribution. 12 countries, thousands of facilities, millions of potentially compromised doses. "This is your mess to clean up," the WHO director told her during a video call. "You know the systems better than anyone. You know what to look for. I'll need resources, people I can trust. You'll have everything you need. The whole world is watching now. No one dares obstruct this investigation." Elena assembled her team. Scientists, investigators, translators. They worked around the clock, tracing shipments, testing samples, building the complete picture of Victor's crimes. The numbers grew. 47,000 became 60,000, then 80,000, then more. Every new name was a knife in Elena's heart. Every new case file was another child who deserved justice. She worked until she collapsed. Then she got up and worked again. Jake was released from the hospital after 5 days. He showed up at Elena's temporary office on the Naval Base Shadow, at his side a coffee cup in each hand. "You look terrible," he said, handing her a cup. "Charming as ever." "I mean it. When's the last time you slept?" "I'll sleep when this is over." "It's never going to be over. Not completely." Jake sat down across from her. Victor is in custody. The evidence is public. The investigation is proceeding. You've done everything you can. There's always more. Another shipment to trace. Another facility to audit. Another family to notify. And other people can do those things. People who haven't been through what you've been through in the last week. Elena looked up at him. He looked better. Stronger. The color had returned to his face. I can't stop, she said quietly. If I stop, I start thinking. And if I start thinking, you start feeling. She nodded. Jake reached across the desk and took her hand. Feeling isn't weakness, Elena. It's proof that you're human. That you haven't become like them. I'm so angry, Jake. I'm angry all the time. At Victor. At the system that let him get away with it for so long. At myself for not seeing it sooner. That anger is fuel. Use it, but don't let it consume you. He squeezed her hand. 47,000 children didn't die so you could work yourself into an early grave. They died because a monster thought he was above consequence. You proved him wrong. Now prove that their lives mattered by living yours. Elena felt something break inside her. The wall she'd built to get through the last week to survive the impossible came crashing down. She sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. Jake came around the desk and held her. Shadow pressed against her legs, whining softly. She cried for her brother, for Daniel, for every name on that list. For the little girl in the Philippines who had grown up believing she could fix the world only to discover that the world was more broken than she'd ever imagined. She cried until there were no tears left. Then she wiped her eyes, took a breath, and looked at Jake. Thank you. For what? For pulling me into that alley. For not walking away. For being exactly what I needed when I didn't know I needed anything. Jake smiled. The first real smile she'd seen from him. Thanks, Shadow. He's the one who spotted you first. The dog barked once, as if in agreement. Elena laughed. It felt strange. Foreign. But good. Okay, she said, straightening her shoulders. I'll take a break. One day. But then I'm back to work. One day is a start. Jake stood, whistling for Shadow. Come on. There's a place I want to show you. Where? The marina. My boat finally made it through impound. Turns out the FBI was very interested in examining it for evidence. He grinned. They didn't find anything, but they detailed the whole thing as compensation. Looks better than it has in years. Elena grabbed her jacket. You're taking me sailing. I'm taking you somewhere quiet, where you can breathe, where nobody wants anything from you. Jake held out his hand. Trust me. Elena looked at his hand, at Shadow wagging his tail, at the door leading out of this room away from the files and the horror. She took his hand. Always. The boat rocked gently as they motored out of the harbor. Elena sat at the bow, face turned toward the sun, letting the salt wind wash away the weight she'd been carrying. Shadow lay beside her, his tongue lolling happily. Jake handled the wheel, guiding them toward the open ocean. This is what you do, Elena called back to him. When you need to escape. This is what I do when I need to remember why I fight. Jake cut the engine as they reached calm waters. Out here everything is simple. The sky, the water, the horizon. No politics, no corruption, no monsters hiding behind boardroom doors. Elena closed her eyes. The boat swayed beneath her. For the first time in days, her mind was quiet. Thank you, she said again. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. Jake walked to the bow and sat beside her. Shadow shifted to accommodate him, resting his head on Jake's lap. "What's next?" Elena asked. "After all this, for you or for me, both." Jake was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the investigation, about the work that still needs to be done. And I put in my resignation this morning, effective immediately." Elena sat up. "Jake, the SEALs taught me how to fight, how to survive, how to protect people." His eyes met hers. "But the battles I'm supposed to fight aren't overseas anymore. They're here. In boardrooms and server farms and places where nobody's watching." "What are you going to do?" "Danny's setting up a private security firm, legitimate operations, protecting whistleblowers, investigating corporate misconduct, the kind of work that doesn't make headlines but makes a difference." Jake paused. "He asked if I wanted in." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I needed to talk to someone first." Elena's heart skipped. "Me, you." Jake turned to face her fully. "What you did took more courage than anything I've seen in 12 years of special operations. You didn't have training. You didn't have weapons. You had a USB drive and a refusal to let evil win." His voice roughened. "I want to be part of whatever comes next for you, if you'll have me." Elena looked at this man, this stranger who had become so much more, who had believed in her when she had nothing, who had fought beside her, bled beside her, almost died beside her. "I'll have you," she said. "Both of you." Shadow barked his tail, thumping against the deck. "That's settled then." Jake leaned back, a weight lifting from his shoulders. "Partners." Partners. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The water sparkled like scattered diamonds. Elena watched the horizon, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. 6 months later, Elena stood before the United States Congress. The chamber was packed. Senators, representatives, journalists, cameras from every network. The gallery overflowed with spectators who had waited in line for hours to witness this moment. Elena adjusted the microphone. Her hands steady. She wasn't nervous anymore. She'd told this story so many times that the words had become armor. "Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today." Senator Patricia Coleman, Chairwoman of the Senate Health Committee, nodded gravely. "Dr. Mercer, please proceed." Elena took a breath. 6 months ago, I discovered that Vanguard Pharmaceuticals, a company trusted by governments and aid organizations worldwide, was systematically manufacturing ineffective vaccines for distribution to developing nations. The result was the preventable deaths of at least 93,000 children. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The number had grown since the initial discovery. It kept growing every week. I brought this information to my employer, Victor Ashworth. Instead of horror, I was met with justification. Mr. Ashworth explained that he considered these deaths acceptable casualties in what he called population management. Elena's voice hardened. He was not alone. Our investigation has uncovered a network of executives, politicians, and officials across 12 countries who either participated in or actively concealed these crimes. She spent the next 3 hours answering questions. Some hostile, most supportive. She provided documents, data testimony that filled thousands of pages. She named names. She connected dots. When she finished, Senator Coleman leaned forward. "Dr. Mercer, you risked everything to expose this conspiracy. Your career, your safety, your life. Why?" Elena was silent for a moment. She thought about her brother, about Daniel, about 93,000 faces she would never see. Because I remembered what my mother told me when I was 8 years old, watching my baby brother die. She said that evil wins when good people stay silent. Elena looked directly into the cameras. I refuse to be silent, and I refuse to let these children be forgotten. The gallery erupted in applause. Senator Coleman didn't try to restore order. Outside the Capitol building, Jake was waiting. Shadow sat beside him wearing a service dog vest that had become necessary for navigating the crowds that followed Elena everywhere. How did it go? They're going to pass the Ashworth Act, mandatory third-party testing for all vaccines and aid programs, criminal liability for executives who knowingly distribute substandard medications. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. It's actually happening, Jake. We're changing things. You're changing things. I'm just the muscle. Don't do that. Don't minimize what you did. Elena gripped his arm. None of this happens without you, without Shadow, without Danny and everyone else who believed in this fight. Shadow barked, drawing attention from passing tourists. He says you're welcome, Jake translated. Elena laughed, a sound that had become easier over the months, not frequent but no longer foreign. Come on, we have a flight to catch. The International Criminal Court in The Hague had scheduled Victor Ashworth's trial to begin in 3 days. Elena was the star witness. The prosecution had built their entire case around her testimony. But first, she had somewhere else to be. The flight to Manila took 18 hours. Elena slept fitfully, her dreams haunted by familiar ghosts. Jake stayed awake beside her, reading case files, making notes. Shadow dozed at their feet, unbothered by turbulence. When they landed, a driver was waiting. He took them through the crowded streets, past markets and monuments, into the countryside where the roads grew narrow and the air smelled of rice paddies and burning wood. Elena hadn't been back to her village since she was 12, since she'd left for the scholarship that had changed her life, since she'd run from the memories that had shaped her. You don't have to do this, Jake said as the village came into view. Yes, I do. The cemetery was small, overgrown, shaded by mango trees that had been saplings when Elena was a child. She found the grave easily. The marker was simple. A name. 2 dates. Nothing more. Marco Mercer, 1992 to 1996. Elena knelt in the grass, her fingers tracing the letters carved in stone. Hey, baby brother? The wind rustled the leaves overhead. Somewhere a bird sang. I'm sorry it took me so long to come back. I was running from this place, from what happened, from the guilt of surviving when you didn't. Jake stood back, giving her space. Shadow sat beside him, unusually still. I found out why you died, why the vaccines didn't work. There was a man, a powerful man, who decided that children like you weren't worth saving, that your life was an acceptable loss. Elena's voice cracked. He was wrong. You were worth everything. You deserved to grow up, to play, to dream, to become whoever you were supposed to be. Tears fell onto the grass. I couldn't save you. I was too young, too powerless, but I found a way to fight for you, for all the children like you. And I'm not going to stop, not ever. She touched the gravestone one last time. I love you, Marco. I'll always love you. She stood slowly, wiping her eyes. Jake was there. He didn't say anything. He just wrapped his arms around her and held on. Thank you, she whispered into his chest. For what? For being here. For not making me do this alone. You'll never be alone again. That's a promise. Shadow pushed between them, demanding attention. Elena laughed through her tears and scratched behind his ears. You too, boy. You too. The trial of Victor Ashworth was the most watched legal proceeding in history. Cameras broadcast every moment to billions of viewers worldwide. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse in The Hague, holding photographs of children who had died. Victor entered the courtroom in chains. He had aged decades in 6 months. His silver hair had turned white. His shoulders slumped. The confident billionaire who had lectured Elena about acceptable losses was gone, replaced by a broken man facing the consequences of his choices. Elena watched from the witness gallery as the prosecutor laid out the case. Documents, emails, financial records, the testimony of whistleblowers who had emerged after her example. The database of 93,000 names, each one read aloud over the course of 4 days. When it was Elena's turn to testify, she walked to the stand with her head high. "Please state your name for the record." "Dr. Elena Mercer." "Dr. Mercer, can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" Elena looked at Victor. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Victor Ashworth was my mentor, my employer, the man I trusted more than anyone in the world." She paused. "He was also the man who ordered my murder when I discovered the truth about his crimes." The testimony lasted 2 days. Elena walked the court through every moment from her discovery of the data discrepancies to the confrontation on the rooftop. She played the recording of Victor's confession, his own words damning him beyond any possibility of defense. Victor's lawyers tried to discredit her. They called her unstable, obsessed, a disgruntled employee seeking revenge. Elena answered every attack with facts, with evidence, with unshakable calm. On the final day of testimony, the defense attorney made one last attempt. "Dr. Mercer, isn't it true that you have a personal vendetta against Mr. Ashworth, that your brother's death created an irrational hatred that clouds your judgment?" Elena felt the familiar pain lance through her chest, but she didn't flinch. "My brother's death taught me what it means to lose someone to preventable causes. It shaped my entire career, my dedication to vaccine safety." She looked at Victor. "When I discovered what Vanguard was doing, I didn't feel hatred. I felt grief. Grief for every family who experienced what mine experienced. Grief for a world where a man could kill 93,000 children and call it population management. But you admit your judgment was influenced by personal trauma." "My judgment was influenced by evidence, by data, by the undeniable truth that Victor Ashworth chose profit over human life." Elena's voice rose. "He can call me obsessed. He can call me unstable. But he cannot deny what he did. His own words convicted him. I'm just the one who made sure the world heard them." The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Victor Ashworth finally looked at Elena. In his eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected: fear. The verdict came 3 weeks later. Guilty on all counts. 93,000 counts of murder, conspiracy, crimes against humanity. The sentence: life imprisonment without possibility of parole. As the guards led him away, Victor turned to Elena one last time. "You think you've won," he said, his voice hollow. "But there are others like me. You can't stop them all." "Maybe not," Elena replied. "But I stopped you. And I'll spend the rest of my life stopping everyone else who thinks children's lives are disposable." Victor was gone. The trial was over. Justice, imperfect as it was, had been served. 1 year after the night in the alley, Elena stood on a stage in Geneva. The World Health Organization had invited her to speak at their annual assembly. Delegates from every nation filled the hall. The Secretary General of the United Nations sat in the front row. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena began. 1 year ago, I was a scientist who believed in systems. I believed that regulations and protocols and oversight would protect the vulnerable. I believed that good intentions were enough." She paused, letting her gaze sweep the room. "I was wrong. Systems can be corrupted. Regulations can be circumvented. Oversight can be blinded by money and power. The only thing that cannot be corrupted is the commitment of individuals to stand up when they see injustice. On the screen behind her, photographs appeared. Children. Smiling, playing, living. Each one a survivor of the recalled vaccine program. Each one alive because of the investigation Elena had sparked. Today, I'm proud to announce the creation of the Global Vaccine Integrity Initiative. Funded by the settlement from Vanguard Pharmaceuticals, staffed by scientists and investigators from 47 countries, this organization will ensure that what happened never happens again. Applause filled the hall. But I didn't come here just to announce an initiative. I came here to issue a warning. Elena's voice hardened. To every executive who thinks they can cut corners on medication safety, to every politician who takes bribes to look the other way, to every corporation that treats human lives as line items on a balance sheet. She leaned into the microphone. We are watching. We will find you. And we will hold you accountable. Because the children of this world deserve protection, no matter where they live, no matter how poor their families, no matter how powerless they seem. Their lives matter, every single one. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After the speech, Jake found her in the corridor, Shadow at his side. Not bad for a scientist who hates public speaking. I had good coaching. Elena smiled, reaching down to scratch Shadow's ears. How's our favorite hero? Shadow's tail wagged furiously. He was wearing a medal around his neck awarded by the Swiss government for his role in capturing Victor Ashworth. He's insufferable, Jake said. All the attention has gone to his head. He earned it. They walked together toward the exit where a car was waiting to take them to the airport. Where to next? Jake asked. Mumbai. Danny's team identified a pharmaceutical company there with similar irregularities. The WHO asked me to consult. Another fight. There's always another fight. Elena stopped, turning to face him. But we're winning, Jake. Slowly. Painfully. But winning. He took her hand. In the year since the alley, they had become more than partners. More than friends. Something neither of them had words for yet, but both of them felt. Together, he said. Always. Shadow barked impatiently. He was ready for the next adventure. Elena laughed and started walking again. The future stretched before her, full of challenges and battles and impossible odds. She wouldn't have it any other way. The final scene took place not in a courtroom or a conference hall, but in a small village in Nigeria. Elena had traveled there at the request of a local doctor who had lost 37 children to the contaminated vaccines. The community wanted to honor the woman who had brought their tragedy to the world's attention. When Elena arrived, she found the entire village waiting. Hundreds of people lined the dirt roads, waving and cheering. But it was the children who made her stop. They ran toward her, laughing, healthy, full of life. Children who had received the replacement vaccines. Children who would grow up because someone had fought for them. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, broke from the crowd and threw her arms around Elena's legs. Thank you, the girl said in careful English. Mama said you saved us. Elena knelt down, her eyes filling with tears. What's your name? Grace. That's a beautiful name. Elena touched the girl's cheek. You know what, Grace? You saved me too. The girl frowned, confused. How? By being here, by smiling, by showing me that everything I went through was worth it. The village held a celebration that lasted until dawn. Elena danced with the mothers. Jake played soccer with the children. Shadow became the village's favorite attraction, patiently allowing dozens of small hands to pet his fur. As the sun rose over the Nigerian plains, Elena stood apart, watching the village come to life. Jake found her there. "What are you thinking about?" "Marco, my brother. He would have been 32 this year." Elena smiled sadly. "I wonder who he would have become." "A scientist, probably. Like his big sister." "Maybe. Or maybe something completely different. That's the point, isn't it? We'll never know. Victor took that possibility away from him, from 93,000 others. But not from these children." Jake gestured at the village. "They get to become whoever they're supposed to be. Because of you." Elena watched Grace chase Shadow across the village square, her laughter rising into the morning air. "It's not enough," Elena said quietly. "It'll never be enough. There will always be another Victor, another conspiracy, another group of children who need protecting. Then we keep fighting. Until when? Until we can't anymore." Jake put his arm around her shoulders. "And then we train the next generation to fight after us." Elena leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the terror of being hunted, the desperation of the escape, the confrontation on the roof, the trial, the testimony, the endless work of building something new from the ashes of something corrupt. She thought about Jake, who had saved her life, and then kept saving it day after day by simply being present. She thought about Shadow, the retired warrior, who had found one more battle to fight. She thought about Danny, about Agent Walsh, about every person who had stood with her when standing alone would have been easier. And she thought about Marco, her baby brother. The reason all of this had started, the voice in her heart that had never stopped calling for justice. "I'm not giving up," Elena said. "Not ever. As long as there are children who need protecting, as long as there are monsters who think they're above consequence, I'll be there." "We'll be there," Jake corrected. Shadow trotted over, tongue lolling, tail wagging, ready for whatever came next. Elena smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt complete. Not because the battle was over, but because she finally understood why she was fighting. Not for revenge, not for recognition, not even for Marco, though his memory would always drive her. She fought because every child deserved the chance to grow up. Every family deserved the truth. Every monster deserved to face justice. And as long as there was breath in her body, she would make sure they did. The sun climbed higher over Nigeria. A new day had begun. A new fight was waiting. Elena Mercer was ready. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Like and share this with someone who needs a reminder that one person can make a difference. I pray that God blesses you and your family with courage, protection, and the strength to stand for what is right. May you always find the light in the darkness, just like Elena and Jake did. If you believe that truth will always win, that justice will always prevail, and that every child's life matters, please comment Amen below. Stay safe, stay strong. And remember, silence is a choice. Choose to speak. Until next time.